What is up, y'all? How's it going? Welcome to Astoria Campaign Diary Session Recap for Session 10. Wow, it's been 10 sessions. It's been months now. We've been having a blast. I think we're going to keep going. So, yeah, this is always a big fun mark to hit your decennial anniversary. So, also had an awesome fun session. Unfortunately, let me fix the camera a little bit here. Unfortunately, Billy Bob Jr., Hippie was not able to make it this week. And Penelope's player is also not at the table anymore, which I mentioned in the last session. But we did have Pax, Mateo, and Gaston. So those are the players. And of course, Anawana, the druid, who is running with them. And the last session ended with them running into this GIF. Session 10 starts with these little pygmy frog raiders surrounding this crash site, and we immediately roll initiative. The way that this battle worked was at the start of initiative, I rolled to spawn how many of these guys there are, and these dudes are a little tiny. They've only got 1 hit point, but they hit for a D4 every time they are able to get in within range and do an attack. So this battle starts out. The party all jumps up on the ship. Roger basically tells them that he's got like 5 bullets in his musket. He's going to do what he can. He's almost out of ammo. But the party quickly finds that they are wiping the floor with these little pygmy guys, but they just keep coming. So they're knocking them out left and right. We're getting crits, but unfortunately these guys are dropping with 1 hit point. So they're just there's freaking frog guts everywhere. And a few rounds go by with these things spawning. Now, what is unfortunate for me or fortunate for the players, the frog raiders, they rolled a 3 on their initiative, which means they went very last in the initiative, and they spawned at the top of the round. So they spawn 2d8, they get wiped out before they can get anywhere, and then it's their turn. They're all dead. So this goes for a few rounds. Slowly, a few more are coming out, but the party's quickly realizing that they are approaching the ship from a singular source. There's like a marching line of them that just keep coming out. So a few rounds go by of them just slaughtering these dudes, and they realize that it's not going to stop. So Pax and Gaston hop down off of the ship. Mateo, Roger, and Anawana stay back on the ship, and they're just picking these guys off from range. Pax and Gaston slowly move forward. They kind of peek through the bushes, and they see that there's a cave in the distance. And they're hearing like a brrr, brrr, like every round, and more of these dudes popping out. So they begin moving towards the cave, and eventually they do find there's this huge giant toad that is like covered in these weird egg sacs. And every round, this thing like swells up, and like a bunch of these eggs pop off of its body, and 2d8 of these little pygmy guys just pop off and just roll out of an egg and start stabbing. So these guys are proving to be no problem at all. Gaston and Pax, they move in and start tearing this giant frog down. But as they do, Gaston looks deeper into the cave and sees there is like a glowing light. And the party's like, that's probably the arcane cell. So they move deeper, and Pax, as he moves in, sees that coming around this corner, sure enough, is this pygmy, this mutated pygmy raider who has grown to like twice his size. His bones are all messed up, and he's holding onto this arcane cell, and it seems to be like radiating on him. As soon as he sees the party, he goes into a frenzy and charges towards them. He gets like 1 hit in on Pax, and Pax has to make a Constitution saving throw. They're not sure why, but he passes. And in the meanwhile, Gaston is like bringing the pain down on this dude, and the thing turns its attention to Gaston. Gaston takes a few hits, rolls a Constitution saving throw, and fails. He gets slashed in the arm, and he feels this weird tingly feeling, but is not really sure what happened. They eventually take these guys down. They wipe out all of the frogs, and they recover this arcane cell. Pax picks it up off the ground, and I have him roll a Constitution saving throw, because this thing is like just beaming with like radiating energy. He passes, but before they head back to the camp, they call out to Mateo to have a private conversation. So Mateo heads over to the group, away from the ears of Roger and Anawana, and they're discussing what to do with this cell. Pax basically makes the case that we should hold on to this thing. We might need Roger's help going into this temple. So let's hide it from him, tell him we didn't get it, and after he helps us, we'll give it to him. They decide this is a good idea, and so they go back and they talk to Roger. They say they didn't find it. They roll a deception check against his insight, and they beat it. So Roger believes them that he didn't find it. So he's kind of distraught at this point, but they're like, hey, come with us. We'll take care of our thing, and then we're not going to leave until we find this cell. So they lie to Roger, and Roger really feels like he has no choice, so he agrees to follow the party. They aren't very hurt, but they've used some resources, so they decide to hunker down in the ship for a while and take a short rest and kind of heal up a little bit, get some spells back and all that. While they're taking this short rest in the ship, Mateo decides to look in his book again. It's been a little bit since he's opened it, and he finds a safe, quiet place away from the party, and opens the book up. And the only way he knows how, just kind of asks the book, "What is going on? Like, why do you need these souls? What is happening?" It gives vague answers. Mateo is kind of like, all right, great, it's more of the same. And then he's about to close the book when suddenly another word is written, and it says Tactus. Now, Tactus is the name of Mateo's son. His husband and his son were killed when he was in Sokolov back home. That's why he left. And his whole deal here is to try to reunite with his family. So this book invokes his son's name. His son was like 2 years old. So he sees Tactus and he's like, what about him? And then it says two more words, and it says, he lives. And for the first time in the campaign, Mateo cracks a little smile across his face. And he has this moment of like the first time in months, like a year of like true hope. His son, apparently, according to this book, was not killed. And he's never seen the bodies, so who knows? But he sees this, and it just reinvigorates him with a hope that, like a hope for life that he hasn't known in almost a year now. He closes the book and he heads back to the party, and doesn't really say anything, but has a much better energy about him. And so with this revelation, Mateo is reinvigorated and ready to continue. We roll to see if anyone comes by. The coast is clear. Anawana, in the meantime, has been out, and she's kind of scouting around the area. So when they come back out, she tells them that she has found a bridge just up ahead, but it is guarded by these Yuan Ti. So the party wants to see it. They head forward, and eventually they come to a ravine in this jungle. It's about 30 feet across, and there is this torrential roaring rapid river that is cutting through the jungle, stopping their crossing deeper into it. They see the bridge down a ways. They're out of earshot and eyesight at the moment. Anawana has guided them to a relatively safe position. They do see, in fact, that this bridge is guarded by cultists, and these two other look like higher up on the food chain guys. They're very muscular, big bladed scimitars. They look like they're made of steel, and they have human bodies, but they have like snake heads, and they are also guarding this bridge. So the party wants to try to avoid confronting these guys at the bridge. So Pax looks around and sees if he can find any other way that they might be able to cross. Rolls an investigation check, and he sees down the river a little ways is actually like a bunch of rocks, like fallen boulders that are helping to rough up the waters downstream, but They are just barely sticking out of the river and going all the way across. They look wet, they look slimy. It looks like a very dangerous way to try to cross, but they decided this is probably a safer attempt because they do have ropes and stuff than actually going to this bridge. So the party heads away from the bridge and towards these rocks. So they get to this area, and I put on YouTube like the sound of like a roaring river. So you just hear like all that sound, and they're discussing and meticulously planning out how they're going to cross this bridge. The party comes up with an awesome plan. The idea is that Pax, having basically a wall walking ability with his vampirism, he's easily able to scale down this 30 feet. So he's not too worried about going up and down. It's really the crossing that they're worried about. But the rest of the party does need to worry about both of those things. So they have some rope. They tie a rope to a tree and throw that down so they can use that to climb down the 30 feet to the rocks. Once they get down, the plan is to run a line using like a javelin, throw it across, try to tie it onto something, and use that as like a hand, like a tightrope, like a kind of thing, and use that to support them as they cross this 30-foot slippery, slimy rock, crossing. So that's what they do. Pax ties a knot around the rope, throws it down. Gaston elects to go first. He climbs down the rope and he makes a dexterity check. I think 15 was the DC that I set for everything on this, and advantages and disadvantages were imposed depending on what was going on. So climbing with the rope, we do a dexterity check with advantage. He just makes it and is able to plant himself on these rocks. Now he gets out his own rope and a javelin and chunks it across into the earth wall ahead. He rolls really high on his attack. He only needed a 10 because it's a giant wall of dirt, but he rolls really high, so it went real deep in there and is very sturdy. Turns around, trying to find a place to tie it off. Rolls an investigation check to see if there's anything that he can tie it off on. Rolls high again, so we say that there is a tree root that is kind of coming out of the earth. So he ties the rope, the other end, around this tree root, and now we have a nice taut line that the party can hold on to and make their crossing roll with advantage. This is when the party comes up with an even crazier idea, which is involving a third rope. So Mateo climbs down. He successfully passes his dexterity check, and he decides that they are going to daisy chain each other together, so that if one person falls off, they can try to pull them back. Now, the downside to this is if one person falls off and they aren't able to or fail miserably at that, then that person's going to pull the next person off. And with each successive person that falls in, that's going to be harder and harder to make that roll. So Mateo and Gaston, standing on the rocks, holding onto this rope, they tie lengths of this rope onto each other, and now they are tied together. Now it's time for the next person to go down. Pax wants to wait until the end because he has wall climbing, so he is able to easily do this. It's either going to be Roger or it's going to be Anawana. I roll. If it's a 1, 2, 3, it's Roger. 4, 5, 6, Anawana. It's a 3. Roger's going down next. He calls down, make some room. They go to scoot across, and as they try to move up, Gaston slips and falls in the water. Now, when he falls in, Mateo tries to save him, but fails his save and then falls in himself. So they both fall in the water and immediately are being just buffeted by these rapids. They immediately take 3d6 damage each. It was like 14. It's a lot of damage, especially for Mateo. He's got not as much health as Gaston, but they're both tumbling through the water. Pax jumps quickly into action, and he throws a rope down, and we have them make like a save, and one of them makes a save. I believe it was actually Mateo who made the save, grabs the rope, pulls himself back onto the rocks, and then Gaston also rolls, makes a save to, they like pull each other back onto the rocks and reposition themselves back where they were originally. So just trying to move up one space, they both fell off, and they took some serious damage just from that one round. So they quickly realized, like, we do not want to go in this water. It's no joke. Like, these are rapids. It's not a sword attack. Like, you're gonna get hit in the head with some rocks. So they're back on the line. They move forward a little bit. Roger begins climbing down, and Roger fails his dexterity save by like 7 or 8. So Roger slips off the rope. Right as he begins to call out, he just tumbles back and goes underwater. Takes 3d6 damage. Pax throws a rope out again. Roger fails his save again, can't grab it. Starts just tumbling down the river, 3d6 damage. Pax takes off running as Gaston and Mateo are watching this go down. They're holding on for dear life, kind of, and they really feel like there's nothing they can do. Pax is chasing Roger down the river, who hit all his armor and like equipment is just falling off into the river. He's tumbling around, can't even come up for breath. And we keep trying to make these saves, and Roger just keeps failing. He's rolling 5s, he's rolling 1s. He cannot pass the dexterity save that is needed to grab onto this rope. Pax does everything he can. He's chasing him down the river. This dude is just stacking damage, and eventually I'm like, all right, dude, like, this is how much health he's got left. If you don't save him this time, Roger's gone. And Pax takes his lasso, throws it as far as he can, right way in front of Roger. We roll Roger's save. He rolls like a 5, and that's it. He hits his head into a rock, goes unconscious, and Pax watches as Roger washes down the river, never to be seen again. So Roger dies trying to cross the river, and Pax heads back to the party. They take a moment to, kind of show some respect for the loss. We all raised a glass at the table, poured one out for Roger, and then had to continue on. There's nothing left to do but to try to get across this river. So Anawana, she goes down next, and she passes her dex save, and she is followed by Pax. Now, with Roger being killed in the river, the group knows that, this is a serious situation. Like, if we go in this river, like, someone's already died. Bad vibes all around. So the party ties themselves all up. They begin moving across, and I think Mateo failed to save and slipped off, but they were able to pull him back with them all being together, and they make it across the river. So our party, after unfortunately losing Roger, this very jolly fellow that they had only known for moments, for a small amount of time, really. Someone that unfortunately, Billy Bob Jr., that was the closest connection he's had to his past thus far in the campaign. So I'm sure Hippie is not going to be happy to learn that Roger died in his absence. But it is a dangerous world, and it's very dangerous for NPCs especially. So Roger dies. They make it to the other side, and they finally start to see the first signs of these Yuan Ti. They see these old decrepit, statues that have looked like they've been there for hundreds of years, overgrown. They continue on through the woods, through the jungle, and eventually they finally come to this old ruined pyramid. This pyramid is like an ancient Mayan pyramid or an Aztec pyramid, the square ones with the stairs going up each side. But it looks like it's been here for 1,000 years. It's overgrown. Trees are coming out of the cracks. Vines are growing all over it. It's old, decrepit, and there's no signs of anyone around. At this point, Anawana basically says, I've never come past the river. This is as far as I've been. you guys take the lead from here on out. I've taken you to the pyramid, you take the lead. So they look around. Pax is looking for any like secret entrances and stuff. They don't find any on this first level. It looks like there's about 5 levels of this thing. And so eventually they decide, all right, let's take the stairs and let's just start walking. So they're making their way up these crumbling ruins. Like howler monkeys and like weird birds and like snakes are definitely like going in and out, like jumping around. They're just walking up. Mateo is checking for traps. He doesn't find any. They do successfully make it to the top, this temple mount way up top, where they find this old crumbled altar, and also almost like looks like what you would like socket with a ring, but like real big, a big stand of like a ring socket, but it's obviously empty. The steel arms have like corroded and faded over time. Some have broken off, and they also find 2 like trap doors, which are now just like holes on the top, leading down into the next level of this pyramid into pitch blackness. So Gaston elects to be the first one to jump down. He leaps down into the hole, kind of lands in the dust. All the dust puffs out. He's looking around in the darkness and doing perception checks and stuff. He sees that there's 2 rooms. One looks like an old library and one looks like an old like quarters for something, but like the bed in there is like way bigger than a normal human's bed. The party calls down to check on him. He screams like he's dying. Pax immediately jumps in. It was just a joke, real funny. And so they all finally come downstairs and they're in this dark room where they are trying to look for any signs of life. They begin searching around. Mateo goes into the old quarters and finds an old drawer. He pulls it open and it's just dust. But at the very back, he finds a small vial and pulls the vial out. And this vial is clearly not aged like the rest of the stuff. It's pretty clean relatively. And there's like a weird dark green liquid inside of it with like little swirls of red and black. And he pops it open, gives it a smell, and does like an investigation check on it. Basically rolls high enough to realize that this is some type of poison. So he recorks it, and they look around for anyone, don't see anyone. They just see a stairwell that leads down further into the pyramid. As they're walking down these stairs, Pax stumbles on a small scroll. He picks it up and opens it, and it's just like this weird arcane alphabet soup. Like the letters are all moving around and jumbled. He can't read it. He passes it to Mateo. Mateo is the same thing, so Mateo just rolls it up and puts it in his pocket. They go down into the next level, and they find what appears to be, or used to be, a large gathering hall. There's like a podium stand, and everything's decayed, and they don't really see any signs of anything. So they continue down to the next level, and they're looking around, and this is when Gaston makes a perception check. They're all trying to look through the hallways, and Gaston, for one moment, turns around, and he sees out of the corner of his eye, peeking around the hallway, is a black cobra that is just barely one eye and around the corner of the hallway. As soon as he makes eye contact, it slips away. So he sees this thing, but he tries to go find it and it's gone. He comes back to the party, tells them what's up, and they're now on high alert. They know something is watching them. They feel like it's following them. They continue, nevertheless, down this pyramid, where they eventually go to the next level and find what appears to have at some point in the past been a torture chamber. There's all these like beds with spikes on them, like the wheel, the rack. There's a hallway full of cells where they find some very, very decayed skeletons. Pax goes and searches one of them, investigates it, and sees that this skeleton looked like it was human, but was in the middle of some transformation and died in the middle of this transformation. The bones were elongated and cracked in weird ways. So something was changing about this guy, and whatever it was, it killed him. So they continue moving around, and they finally find their way to the bottom floor, where they walk into what appears to be used to be an old temple. There was like red paint that's like largely chipped and faded, but there is a statue at the front of this temple, almost like an altar, and it is a depiction of a humanoid with six cobra heads, like a six-headed snake person, who is standing out with his arm like this, as if to hold something, but there's nothing in his hand. So they figure there must be something around here to put in that hand. They see this statue, decide to investigate the rest of the level of this pyramid. And as they're looking around, Pax goes down one of the hallways, and as he turns a corner, he sees like what it is it's a hypnotic pattern. It's like LSD level, like effects, just like dancing in front of him. Almost starts to charm him, but he makes his save, pulls back, runs back down the hallway. Whatever's in here is fucking with him. He resists, tell the party what just happened. They're all freaked out, but they feel like there's not much to do but keep searching around. They eventually find another room with a large sarcophagus sitting right in the center. There is like natural light coming in, kind of lighting the sarcophagus, and on it is an engraving of this six, like a pharaoh almost, but like with six cobra heads, much like the statue that they just saw. Gaston walks up, checks around for traps, doesn't roll that great, doesn't detect anything. He opens the sarcophagus up, and a like poison gas just pours out right into his face. Rolls a Constitution saving throw, rolls pretty low, but nothing really happens immediately. He just coughs it away, kind of chokes a little bit, and a swarm of snakes just pour out of the sarcophagus. They fight off all these snakes. Pax cuts them down. Mateo takes a few out, and once they cleared all this out, they find this brilliant scepter laying inside of this sarcophagus. It's basically like this giant staff with a cobra head on top, completely bejeweled and crusted, and it looks to be in like perfect condition. Mateo senses a very heavy magical energy on this thing, so he picks it up and takes it, and now the party is trying to decide what to do. They know that the scepter belongs in the statue, but they don't know if it would be a good idea to put that scepter in the statue. From what they understand, this Sin character, they're trying to resurrect him, and they believe maybe if we were to put the thing in the statue, that could resurrect him. Maybe we should just take the statue and leave. These decisions are talked over for a while. Mateo asks Anawana what she thinks. Basically, she's not going to make a decision because she's an NPC, but I think if she was to say, she would just want it destroyed because she hates these people. So they go back and forth for a while, and eventually they decide, let's put it in the statue and just see what happens. So that's what they do. So the party returns to the temple room, and they put the scepter in the statue, and there's like little portholes in this temple to like let the natural light in. And as they do this, the fading sun like rises back, and they see full daylight come, and then morning, and then night, and then evening again, daylight, morning, night, and the sun starts like and like a strobe effect as the temple around them begins to like reconstruct itself and return to its former glory. Suddenly the old broken floors become marvelous marble floors. The chipped paint regains its color and its brilliance. The old sconces that hold torches like reapparate inside of them, and the flames like relight, and suddenly they are standing in this brilliant, pristine, ancient Yuan-Ti temple, and they hear voices in the pyramid. And then Mateo pulls the scepter back out, and it all reverses. They're back in the ancient ruins. So they were like, what the hell? They had just traveled through time. And so when they had put it in and they were in that pristine version of the temple, they first thought it was an illusion. Mateo put his hand to the fire, it burned them, so they knew it was real. So when they came back, they were like, what are we doing? And they hear a voice basically saying, like, that's not a toy, you shouldn't play with that. They turn around and they see standing in front of them is a humanoid figure, completely black, like onyx black scales, with a cobra's head, whispering to them. This individual is Teoshi. He is a yuan-ti, a mind whisperer. They are very super apprehensive about this guy, obviously, and he basically asks them why they're there. They explain the situation, and he thinks that he could help. Now, it's interesting because the party basically left this guy behind. If they had not pulled the scepter back, he was gone, but they they put it in and then they came back. So this guy decided, okay, let's talk to them now. He tells them basically that the Sin guy is trying to ascend to basically a demigod, and he will help them in exchange for them helping him take Sin's place so that he himself could become the next ruler of the yuan-ti. They ask him, why should we trust you? He says basically, you really shouldn't, but I know the ins and outs of this place. I know all the secret entrances of the pyramids. Very tenuously make an agreement with Teoshi, and Pax shakes his hand, and Teoshi basically agrees to try to help them accomplish their goal. If in the end they are successful, that Teoshi can take the crown instead and ascend in Sin's place. Now, how this is all going to play out, I don't really know yet. There are definitely a lot of moving parts that we're going to have to see how they all come together. Time is a factor, but we will see how things play out. That was the end of session 10. It was really fun to kind of do a get into the pyramid. We got a little taste of a true dungeon crawl. Not really a proper dungeon crawl, but I definitely, at least I know Andrew was pretty stoked about hearing the words dungeon crawl, so maybe we're going to have to do more of those. But we made it down to the temple. Our party traveled 1,000 years into the past and returned to make a tenuous alliance with a yuan-ti who seems to be playing both sides of the coin, and they're now returning to the past to try to stop the yuan-ti from whatever they want to do, whatever they're trying to do. It ain't good, I'll tell you that much. But yeah, that was the end of session 10. Once again, this was super fun. It was the river scene was probably my favorite part of the night, to be honest. I thought the pyramid was going to be the highlight, but I gotta say, I really didn't even have an idea for what was going to be at the river besides the bridge. But when players go looking for stuff, if they roll really well on it, or roll decently high, that's when things will start to appear. Obviously, you're not going to roll a 17 and find a friggin' zip line, but if they're looking for another way, there must be something somewhere. So yeah, that ended up being a really, really interesting approach to trekking across the river. And unfortunately, Roger died trying to cross the river, this newfound friend of theirs, which I think is even a nastier wound, because they have the arcane cell. They could have given it to him and he would have been home free. Instead, hid it from him, and as a result of that, he's dead now. So I don't know. Weird situation, but we're in the thick of it now. They've made an unsavory alliance, and they are moving into the past to try to destroy the Yuan-Ti and stop sin from becoming the demigod that he plans to become. So yeah, that was session 10. Once again, thank you for tuning in. Y'all have a great week. I'll be back with session 11 whenever it happens. So y'all be safe out there. Enjoy your lives. I will see you next time. Peace.